Hello there, my name's Jan from JB Crafts and I'm back today with another tutorial for you, and this time it's all about the techniques. So I'm planning to create a series of videos that show different techniques, and this is the very first one. So we're actually going to have a look at an embossed resist today. So we've got a little bit of heat embossing, a bit of inking, and obviously if you haven't seen this technique before, the embossed area resists the ink, hence the name. So I've kept it very simple with regards to the actual card itself. There's just some matting and layering. Wanted to show off this element, and you can do this with any particular stamp. It works best, I think, with white embossing powder, but you can do it with other colours as well. And then again, just very simple inside. I've left it blank without a greeting inside today, just because it says butterfly wishes. It's not a specific occasion, so I thought this way you could write any message inside, but again, just decorated it to link the inside of that card to the outside. So we've got a top fold card today, stands alone. The decoration inside does help to strengthen that card because we're working on the front of it, which is why I like to pop the inside in as well. So we're actually going to start with this top section and do the actual heat embossing first. So we'll pop this one to one side, and I'm going to bring in a piece of smooth cardstock, and this measures 6 5/8 by 4 5/8, and this is going to be the top section of my card. So we're going to work on this part first. So the very first thing we need to do is actually do our stamping. So I've got my platform here at the ready. I'm going to bring this into play, and we're going to pop this inside. I'm just going to anchor it in place because I want the stamp to go off the edge there. I'm just going to pop that in place, and the very first thing I'm going to do is treat it with my anti-static pad here, just to get rid of any surface sort of grease or fingerprints or anything that may be on it like that, so that we can get a good connection with the ink and the embossing powder. So that's job number one. Then I'm going to bring in my sticky ink. Just pop that to one side. So I've got a translucent sticky ink. So a Versamark would work for this. This is actually a watermark ink by Spectrum Noir. And we're going to bring that in with our stamp. Now this is a very old stamp set. It's from an old Sarah signature collection by Crafter's Companion called Flutterby, which was brought out several years ago now. But I absolutely adore this really large butterfly stamp that's in here. So this is what we're going to stamp out. So if we remove that protective layer from the stamp and then position this on the card where you want it to go, and I'm going to pop it at an angle with a little bit of it just going off the top here, so I've got sort of a partial print. Try not to touch the card too much, and then once I'm happy with the positioning there, we can actually close up my stamping platform here and pick up that stamp. Okay, so now that I know where the stamp's going, I can position my magnets to keep that in place. And then I'm going to take that clear ink and just give this a really nice covering of that watermark sticky ink. So my embossing powder will stick to this then. So we're going to do a couple of layers just to make sure that we've got every single part of that covered. So the first layer, I'm going to stick that down and give it a good press down. Sometimes with a larger stamp like this, it is actually better to do this standing up, but as long as you can get your weight over it, we should be good to go. And then I'm going to ink it up again just to be sure, make sure that I've made connection with all the pieces of the stamp, and then we'll give this another press down. So again, just a really nice press, get that ink to transfer to the card. And you won't be able to see a massive amount at the minute, but once we get that embossing powder in place, we should be good to go. So let's move that one out of the way for a second. And then I'm going to bring in my white embossing powder. So this is a fine detail white powder. And I am literally going to pop a piece of card down just to catch any surplus on. And we're just going to pop the white all over where we stamped that sticky ink. So I'm being careful not to touch the ink with my fingers. Make sure we've got the powder attached to all that stamped area. And then we're going to heat set this with our heat tool. So again, just tap off any excess. Any that's not actually stuck will just come away nicely. And just make sure we've got a really nice coating on there. That looks fine to me. So again, we'll pop this to one side. And I'm going to bring in my heat tool. So apologies if this is a little bit loud. I just need to get this ready. And the biggest tip that I can give you with heat embossing is to get your heat tool up to temperature before you start with the card. Any heat on the card will warp it, but if you get the heat tool up to temperature, it means that you don't have to spend as long on the actual card itself. So again, I'm going to just hold it over one area, and you'll see all of a sudden this will start to melt and it changes colour. Whereas it looks a little bit dull at the minute, we're going to get that lovely bright white embossed look. So I'm just going to chase that all the way around, and once it's melted, we can move on round the stamp until it's all turned to that lovely shiny white level. So again, just chasing it round. Just finishing off that last bit, and that all looks good to me. Turn that one off, and then if I show you now, it should, in the light, you should be able to pick up that lovely white embossed area. Just see a little tiny bit at the top there that I've missed, so I'm just going to pop that back on for a second. There we go, otherwise it will actually brush away when we come to do the next part of the technique. So we've got that butterfly in place. I'm just going to give it a second for that embossing powder to cool. And you can see we've got a little tiny bit of warping on the card, but you can manipulate it back into place. And then once it's cooled down, I'm going to bring in my blending mat here. And I'm just going to use my soft cloth and very, very gently make sure that there are no loose particles left on the top of there. And then we're going to add our ink. So I've chosen a couple of colours of Distress Oxide ink, and I've gone with the greens for this one. So we've actually got Shabby Shutters and Bundle Sage, which are two sort of similar types of green, but it will just give us a little bit of gradient in that inking. So I'm going to start off with the lighter of the two, which is Shabby Shutters, and we're going to add this with my blending brush over the top, straight over the top of that heat embossing that we've just done. So load up my blending brush, and I'm going to start sort of in the middle here and then blend this out towards the edges, and I'm going to leave space to add some of that slightly darker green as well. I'm not too worried if it goes slightly out of the edge of the design. I want it to look as if that ink was there all along. So again, just keep popping back into the ink pad, and we've got our first colour there. Then I'm going to swap over. Because these greens are very similar, I'm going to use the same blending tool here and pick up that next one. And then I'm just going to pop this into certain areas. So again, just to blend the two shades together, bring it outside of that stamped area a little bit so it looks as if it's got a bit of a shadow as well. So I'm going over the edge of the embossing. And then I'm going to bring down this side and do the same. And there's no right or wrong with this really, you know, you can ink as much or as little as you like. And then I'm just going to turn it round for ease now and just grab a little bit of scrap paper to hold this so that I don't damage what I've already done. And then we're going to do the same around this bottom edge. Again, just taking it outside that stamped area. And we've got a nice blend then of those two shades of the green. So you could do this in any colour. I just chose the green today. It looked really nice and fresh against the white. So I'm going to go over the central part now, just where those two colours meet, just to blend in that darker shade with the original lighter shade, and to take a little bit of the ink back off that embossing. And I think I'm just about happy with that. You can see how we've got that sort of area coloured now. So we'll pop those to one side. And then the next thing is to just buff this area now. So where we've actually got the embossing, the ink is sat on top of it at the minute, but because that heat embossed area is now non-porous, it means that just with a soft cloth, we can rub that ink away, and you can see how it brings, you can see the difference there between this part and where we've just buffed the ink off. So it literally just sits on top of the embossing, and once you buff this with a nice soft cloth, it's going to bring that beautiful white emboss area back. So it's resisting the ink, which is where it gets its name from the heat that the emboss resist. And I just think it's such a simple technique, but what a wow factor. So you can see there now where we brought up that white embossing, and we're good to go. So we'll move the mat out of the way now, and it is now just simply a case of matting and layering. So what I've done is I've started off with a slightly larger than 7 by 5. I've gone up to 7.5 by 5.5, and I've created that lovely top fold card here. And then we're going to bring in some mats and layers. So I've picked out a green that was very similar to what I was actually working with. So this next layer measures 7 by 5 inches. And we put this one on, and you can see that looks fine. It looks absolutely fine. But just to create a bit of definition, I'm actually going to bring in a black layer just to make it pop that little bit. Because I've stamped my sentiment in black, you can see the difference when we pop just a very, very skinny black layer around it. It lifts it away from that green matte layer. So I've made this just 1/8 of an inch bigger. If you remember, I said the beginning one was 6 5/8 by 4 5/8, and my next one is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. So there isn't a massive difference there. So let's get some of these popped together. I'm going to use my tape runner here, and I'm just going to add, in fact, I'm going to change my mind and use my wet glue for this layer, just because it's such a skinny border. It allows me the time with the wet glue to just wriggle it into place and get that border nice and straight. So I'm going to use my all-purpose construction glue here, and I've got that ability then to lay it down and then just move it into place. So we'll just add a little bit of that, and this is going to sit straight on top of that black layer. So with the wet glue, I can pop it down and literally just wriggle everything into place. Make sure that I'm happy with it in the right place, and then give it a good press down to seal that glue. Okay. So we'll have a little look there, and we can see we've got that nice, neat black border. And you do get a good minute or so at least before that glue sets, so that you can actually pop it into place. So if you get a little bit of ruttling with the card from the heat, just work with that cardstock until the glue seeps into those fibres, and you should get a really nice stick in place then. There we go. And then I'm going to flip back to my tape runner now, because I've got a slightly larger area this time to stick my mat onto. So we're going to pop this one onto the green layer. And as I say, I've kept it very, very simple. I wanted to focus on the techniques, and I'm hoping to bring these to you on a regular basis, different techniques, and it is going to be a much simpler video than the ones that I've been doing that have been popping up at the weekends, just to give you those technique based tutorials. And again, turn it over and give it a good press down on the back, and then the last one again is going to sit straight onto my card blank. So again, just some simple matting and layering. I didn't want to take away from that beautiful embossed butterfly at the front. I want that to be the kind of the star of the show. So again, I've not added any sort of extra embellishments with ribbon or bows or anything like that. I am literally just going to pop these mats and layers down and let that speak for itself there. Okay, so what I have got is the piece to go inside, and I've already created my little sentiment here. Okay, so I've got butterfly wishes just to pop on here. I thought that was very appropriate, and that came from the same set that I was using. This was still out from the previous video that I did. It's from Vintage Butterflies by Crafter's Companion, and I've just stamped out that lovely butterfly wishes there, and I thought that fit perfectly. So again, we're just going to keep that nice and simple. I'm not going to raise it up on any foam or anything like that. I am literally just going to pop this onto one side of my card. I don't want to detract from that lovely stamped area, so this one's going to sit right up level with the edge of the card there. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of stamping in this corner. So again, I'm going to stay with the self colour. You know me and my numbers. I love the numbers in there, and again, it's all optional. I'm literally just going to pop this right up in the corner. It's just part of the background design. It doesn't have to be anything special, and it is optional, of course. And then we've also got the piece to go inside. So this one actually measures 7 by 5. It's the same size. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie. This is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. It's the same size as the black matte layer. And I've actually made this just to fit inside here. And again, like I said earlier, I've left it blank without a sentiment inside. It could just be a simple thank you. It could be a just because card, you know, because you can send it. If you wanted to add a birthday sentiment to it, or a different celebration, that would work just as well. But in this instance, it was all about that technique and not necessarily about the rest of the design. So we've got almost finished there. The last thing that we need there, and if you know me well, you know that I love my little pearls just to finish off. So I've just chosen some coordinated colours, and I'm just going to pop those, scatter those about, just to finish that front section, like so. And then I need my little sticky pickup tool, and we're going to pop those pearls in place just as an accent on the design there. So you can see we've got our resist technique. So just make sure that all that ink has been lifted off your embossing, just to reveal that beautiful white embossed area there. If I bring the one that I did earlier, you can see we're pretty much along the same level there. The only thing that I did differently was I'd got a little butterfly lying around on my desk from something I was working on. I thought that actually just linked nicely with the inside, so I'd pop that on the inside there. I've just inked with the residue that was left on my brush. I've just inked around the outside just so that it lifts it from the back of the card blank. But yeah, the technique this week is actually that resist emboss with your inks. So I hope you've enjoyed that one. As I say, I am planning on doing a series of this with just simple techniques, keeping the cards very simple. So thank you for watching, and thank you for all your interest and your comments in the videos. I have been reading them all, and obviously couldn't do this without you guys. So yes, I will keep them all coming. So I'm going to say bye for now, and I'll see you very, very soon.